and this is just hopefully to help reduce your workload. So self-marking quizzes is a fantastic use. We're going to look at it from the Google Forms initially, and then we're going to go in and look at it from Google Classroom, because we can create them from Google Classroom directly. As always, any questions that you have, pop them in the chat as we go, and I'll do my best to answer them. And I will just get started. So if I exit this, if you haven't joined the classrooms yet, I'm assuming most of you have. If you haven't joined, the codes are just on the screen right now. So if you're in East Lothian, PDQN 6XL, and Mid Lothian is FVT2Z5Z. And I will just get started. So I will show you what the instructions are from Google Classroom. Now, Mid Lothian and East Lothian, the instructions are the same. I do copy and paste. And I will apologise, Mid Lothian. I did wish you all a lovely long weekend, but yours isn't until this following weekend. So I was a bit early on that one. All of the instructions are there for creating a self-marking quiz. Let me just zoom in so it's a bit clearer for you. And I'll talk you through what we're doing here. So we're going to do our same shortcut with form.new that we did on Friday. Then we're going to go straight to the settings this time. If I start that now, I'm going to open a new tab. Then I'm going to type in form.new to create that new Google form. And that's our blank Google form, the fastest way to do that. And before I do anything here, I'm going to go to the settings, which is next to send, and go to quizzes. And then I will make this a quiz. So by clicking on this button here, I get some new options. I'm going to ignore them for now, and I'm just going to hit save. So I'll just hit save once I've made this a quiz in my form settings. Hide this at the bottom. So now what's changed? If I open another blank Google form, I've still got some others joining in. If I open up a new Google form, we'll just do a bit of spot the difference. So we've got our untitled question. This isn't a quiz, this one here. And the difference with a quiz is we now have this answer key at the bottom. So that means that we can determine what the correct answer is for a question. We can also give feedback for an incorrect or a correct answer, and we can give it a points value. Whereas if it's just a survey, we don't have the answer key option, so we don't have that option there either. So I'll go back to the quiz one. I'm going to close that now. I'm going to stay on this quiz, and now I'm going to start creating my blank quiz. So I'll give the form a name, and I'm going to just do colors quiz. Now, obviously, I do always say put the date in it, so I'm going to do that as well. It's May, love May. And here we go. So it's named it. I click where it says Untitled Form, then it will pull that name over. You can change that. You can click on that and edit it if you wish. So you don't have to stick with that same one. You may want to, I add a date so that when I share it in Classroom, it's easy for me to know which one it is, or just for me accessing it in my Google Drive. I think that was from Tuesday, and the date on Tuesday was the 5th of May. So I try and keep the same date format. You may want to put your class name. So if you're a secondary teacher, you might want to put S1.2 and then have English. It's just so that for you, you know that any responses or any questions you're being asked, or when you see that someone submitted it, it's easy. Or you can just search your class name within your Google Drive to find it. Just helps keep a structure. But I tend to put the date for my way of working. You can give a form description. Now at this point, this is where I would give some instructions for the form, or just share your learning intentions and what it is you're looking for from the learners and the why behind giving them a quiz. So that would be in this bit. So again, very clear instructions in here. And now I'm going to start with some questions. Now I did pop a link onto Classroom so that if you can't think of any multiple choice questions, I grabbed 150 plus multiple choice questions. It's more for like creating quizzes for family quiz nights. So if you can't think of any, steal some of those for today, just till you get used to the form and the way it works. But by all means, create something that is meaningful to your class. Now, a word of caution here is if you are wanting it to self-mark, this is where having a multiple choice question or a short answer text is key, simply because if you wanted them to have, or you could have a checkbox, there are other things that work quite well, but multiple choice checkboxes are short answer, simply because if you go to this paragraph option, it will mark and look for exactly what you determine is the correct answer. We can have a paragraph option in a quiz, but you will need to review that prior to the students getting their grade. It won't mark it straight away. And if you are looking for that, it may be something that you create in Google Docs so that you can give a bit more feedback on a paragraph. We can't give the same type of feedback on a piece of text in a Google form as we could do in Google Docs with that comment function. And I did talk a bit more about that last Monday on the feedback session, and that was at 1:30. So if you want to look back at the webinars, by all means go back and look at the feedback one from last Monday, and that will help you with longer text. Some people do use this for assessments or for some comprehension work as well, and that's where you may then I'm just making sure we're all muted. We may then have it that you review it, but certainly short answer, multiple choice or checkboxes are the way forward to make it self-marking and to save you times. So I'm going to make this a checkbox one. I'll do this so it's got multiple options. So which of these are primary colours? So I'll do green. And then what I will say is you don't have to click on the next one. You can just hit enter like you're creating a new paragraph and it will go into the next option. So I'll do a few here. And so now I've got my answers, including incorrect ones. That is important that if you are doing multiple choice or you're doing the checkboxes, that you have incorrect answers as well. Add the answer key. So by clicking on the answer key, this then changes the way this looks. So I can't type and change this. If I click on the option, it will mark that as one of the correct answers. Now, if you've got a multiple choice question, you will only be able to select one, I think, or you may be able to select more than one, but try and keep it that there's only one correct answer because the students will only be able to select one. So if I choose the primary colours, then I can add answer feedback. So if I give this a points value as well, I can now add answer feedback. So if they get it incorrect, I might want to give them a link to a resource that would help them to know this. Or I might want to pop in a video from YouTube. So I might want to look up an art video, or you could always include a video that you've created yourself and just get that shareable link, as we've done in the sharing documents work in the past. Pop that link in here, then the students can go and see exactly what you have said. And likewise for correct answers, you could say, great work, well done. Or you could structure this more in the way that you would normally give feedback. You can hit save, you'll see it saves that there, and then done. So now I've got these ticks next to all the correct answers. If I did want to change that, I can go back to the answer key and I can quickly edit it and then come back and say done. And then I can go on to add another question. One thing I will say about Google Forms is it does have a lot of machine learning in it. So that means that computers are there to help you. So what the computers can do is they can go in and they can suggest some correct answers if it's a question that's easily Googled. So if I just come in here and if I say, what is the capital of Scotland? Might not do it for me. Here we go. There, so it says suggested correct answer, Edinburgh. Now it doesn't do this for every question. And then other options, I can then just select add all. Then it will add them in. So I didn't have to think of other cities. But one thing that does happen here is it will always add the correct answer to the top. So if you're going to use these, we can then click on that correct answer, and drag it so that we're shuffling the order, because we know what students are like. They're very quickly going to suss out that it's always the first option that's the correct one. So to click and drag, it's like what we do in our Google Classroom. You'll see we've got these 6 dots that appear next to the answer when I hover over it. I can click on that and drag it to move. If I simply click on the question, or on the option, it will highlight it. Now, I didn't have to go and do the answer feedback to mark that one as correct, because Google Forms already knew that was the correct option. So it's added that already for me. And as we can normally do with Google Forms, we can add pictures. So depending on the age and stage of your learners, you might want to add some pictures in there. So if you were doing this for comprehension or some of your reading, you could have a piece of text in your Google Classroom that you share, then have some questions that go with it in Google Forms, so that the form will mark itself and they get their feedback straight away. And certainly with us not delivering all of our learning live now, that's a great way of the students getting their feedback rather than waiting for it to come back to them once the whole class have returned their work. So it means that they get it straight away. By going to the answer key, this is where I can add the points value. Now, you don't have to have a points value. You could have it all marked to 0. So then it won't have, you've got 7 out of 10, for example. So again, just going by your learners, it's up to you how you work this. And also, you could add answer feedback to any of the questions, or you can leave that blank. So you don't have to leave answer feedback either. Yes, so you can add a picture to a question. It's a very good question there. So I'll just select done here. So next to the question, when you type in the question, there's an option for an image. So you'll see this image box here. This is our Google picture. So if you see this image anywhere, that's where you can pop in a picture of something. I can pop in a picture here. I can search on Google. And again, these are all things that are suitable for reuse. And then I can just do a picture of Edinburgh as a clue. And pop that in and just select the picture you want and insert. Then that will go in. So now, as I said on Friday, it's really important that we test our forms before we send them. As we get more comfortable with using them, we're probably not going to need to test them every single time. But certainly at the beginning, it's really useful to test them. And to test our form, we click on the eye. This is our preview button. So if we hover over it, it allows us to preview it. And then this will show us what the students will see. Or if you were doing a quiz for your colleagues, what your colleagues see. So if I go through this, and I'm going to intentionally get some wrong, and then I'm going to select Edinburgh for this one here. So I'll select submit. Now a student, they don't see their score straight away on this screen. They need to go to view score. So this is what they need to click on to get that feedback. So by clicking on view score, I can now see that I got 2 of these right, but this one was wrong. And this right now tells me what the correct answer was. I'll go back into the form settings to show you how we switch that off if you want them to do it more than once. And then what is the capital of Scotland? At the top, it will say that I've got a 0 out of 1 because this one at the bottom, I didn't give a points value to. So if you do want them to all have points, you need to remember to add that points value. But if you don't want to make that an issue, just don't put points in there at all. So I'll come back to edit this form. I'll just close the tab and then I will close this one and I'll come back into the form. So what we had there was I could see all the correct answers. Now that may be helpful, but it may also be something that you don't want your students to have. So we've changed that in our form settings. So everything that we want to do is in the settings cog here now. So I click on this, I go back to that quizzes button, and then this is where I can allow the respondents to see certain things. So if they miss a question, it will highlight that they missed it. I'm going to switch that off. I'm not going to let them see the correct answers. And again, if you don't want them to see the points, you can just switch that off in these settings as well. So you can just switch that off quite easily here. The release mark bit, now that allowed me to immediately see my score after I submitted the quiz. So after I completed that quiz, it allowed me to view score. However, you can switch that off and you can say that later after manual review, and that allows you to turn on the emails, and then that will send that back. Now, I'm not sure how that works for Midlothian and Glow. I'll need to test that one out, unfortunately. When you are in schools, and if your school uses Chromebooks, this is obviously a setting that right now in East Lothian, unless your students have been given Chromebooks home, won't be an option, but we can lock the Chromebooks onto a form. So if we wanted students, this is when we're in the classroom, so not quite so relevant for now, but important to note. If you were in the classroom and all your students were on a Chromebook, we can have this locked mode switched on. And what that means is students can't go on to another tab whilst they're completing the quiz and Google the answers. So it keeps them within that form. It restricts them to that tab whilst they're doing the quiz. And only after it's submitted can they then go into another tab. And so that's for the Chromebooks only. That's something to note for when you're back in the classroom if you want to use these in other ways. But certainly the release mark is if you were to do paragraph options, you would need to have that later after review and allowing them to see missed questions, correct answers, and point values. I'll hit save. I'll now test the form again to see how that's changed it. And then I can go, I'll just do the same answers again. Click submit. I can view my accuracy, but you'll see right now, it's not telling me if they were right or wrong. So all it's doing is it's showing what my answers were, and it doesn't tell me if they were right or wrong. What I then need to do as the teacher is I go back into the responses. So we looked at this on Friday when it came to looking at surveys. So it's the same in the quizzes. We have the responses, and this is where we can see what the average points are, the correct answers, how many of our students are selecting the wrong one, for example, and how many are getting it right. So we get that overview. And for common misconceptions, so if you were thinking certainly right now with the No New Learning guidance from unions, this would allow you to see what you need to go back and consolidate with your class if this was a review of prior learning that you've done in the classroom. I can then go into individual responses and I can see what they've put here. And then I can add individual feedback. So yes, we could add that generic feedback previously. I can now add individual feedback for this student, and they would then be able to see that in that view score option. And the same for the next question. And then for the next one here, leave that page. I can then add that individual feedback there. Now, what I'll show you briefly before, I know we're running out of time, but before you go and give this a good go, is just how to create a form from your Google Classroom. So I'm just going to go into my demo classroom that I've created and into the classwork section. So now we can go into that create button. I'm just going to make sure I've got the questions open. Create, and then we've got this quiz assignment option from Google Classroom. So this allows us to create that quiz in the Google Classroom that you want to assign it to. You can always reuse it in other classrooms as well. Remember, always give it a clear title, and as some people have suggested previously, putting your class name in that title helps you if you're getting lots of Gmail notifications and say you're a secondary teacher or you cover lots of other classes in other schools. You could have your S1 literacy and then it gives the title of the assignment. I'll just do the quiz. Then you'll see we've got the instructions. Always give clear instructions. As I say, always make them accurate and consistent so that your students are familiar with the way in which your instructions are set. You'll note that I always follow the same format in my own Google Classroom that you're all part of. And then we've got the blank quiz at the bottom here. This is where we can straight away switch on that locked mode. This will link with your Google Classroom. So if you do have it marked, you can have the grade importing. So you can see the grades can come over into your Google Classroom, or you can switch that off just by toggling that switch. And then we click on this form to then generate that blank quiz. So this is another way that we can do it. And I would say in Google Classroom, it's quite a neat and easy way to do that. And I'm just saying there's a question. I set a quiz which initially did not have the setting release marked after manual review. Now marked each assessment individually. How do I get their marked forms back? I think they need to go and see, I think they'd get an email. I'm not too sure. I'll have to check that. To be honest, the quizzes and forms I'm used to doing very quickly with adults in a session. So some of these questions I'll get back to in our classroom streams and just double check them all. Certainly that manual after review, it may be that in classroom it gives them their feedback there. Where you say which are the correct answers, we do that in the answer key. So I'll just do that again, yes or no. It will suggest those answers. And then in the answer key, I can then select which is the correct answer. I can then give it a points value, or I can leave it that as 0. I can also add the feedback there as well. And then done. Now, the last thing to show is if you've created the quiz and you created it by going to form.new, is how we send that quiz to our class. Now, like we did on Friday, just the same way. So we go into that send button, we get the link, and then we can copy that link. We can either shorten it, but if you're sharing it on Google Classroom where you know they're just going to click, there's not really a need to shorten it. And then we can copy that. From here, I can go back into my classroom, I can create an assignment, and then I can add a link. And then I'll just paste that link into here, and you'll see that is appearing at the bottom. So I've got my Google Forms there. As we went over on Friday as well, the settings in terms of who can respond can stay there. So if you wanted to collect email addresses, that saves you from having to have that name field. So we can have that collect email address and go here. I'm just seeing if we've missed. Yeah, so Michael, just for accessing afterwards, Gus has put on the Techie Tea Party website. So all the webinars are on the Techie Tea Party website. That's where all the recordings are. You can limit it to 1 response. So obviously, if you don't want students to go and do it again, you can limit it to 1 response. But if you do want to see that if you give them the same quiz again, maybe at a later date, you can switch that off and they can submit the exact same response to the same quiz again. This is really just your chance to go and give this a go. If you do have questions, pop them in the chat as you give this a try. I've got the instructions in our Google Classroom, in the Techie Tea Party classroom. I'll pop them on my screen here for you. Let me just go into view assignment and instructions. So you'll see I've got a link for some multiple choice questions. If I click on that, and it will open. What you can then do is you can copy and paste as well. So if you had a Google Doc, I can copy and paste. Let me come out of the answer feedback. I can add another question. I can paste that in. Then I can get all of the options. So where it's probably going to, and then I can paste those in. There. Now, if it does give extra lines, just delete them and then that will come out. How do you present your form during a Google Meet or your screen during a Google Meet? If you click where I'm talking or where you can see my screen, down at the bottom, it will say, let me make sure I'm doing this on the same screen, it will say Aileen Mackay is presenting. Now, on your screen, if you were hosting a Google Meet, that will just say click here to present or present now or present your screen. Click on that and then you'll be able to choose whether you're presenting your whole screen, a window, or you can, I'm not sure if the updates come to Google G Suite within EduBuzz yet, but you can also present a Chrome browser. I'll do that tomorrow morning so you can see it because I'll put some sound in. So you can see that by presenting a Chrome browser, you can pull some sound across. So you can do that. I tried it out on Friday for my family quiz and it worked really well. And do you need to put a place for the children to put their name, or just, I would just say use their email addresses. So just make sure in your form settings that you collect email addresses. And if it's only been shared with your students, it means that you'll know who they are. You know, you'll know their logins, and certainly just collect email addresses. It saves having to have their name put in and having to have a name field. Yeah, how would you share a quiz with stage partners to use in their classroom? Good question. So if you want to share the quiz, this is where I'm going to show you a little Google hack. Okay. Now, this is certainly, it saves you from having their class's responses coming into your classroom. So there's nothing worse than sharing a form with another teacher for them to use in their classroom, which sounds lovely, but then you getting all of their class's responses and then having to figure out which ones are yours. So a Google hack for you here is at the end of your form's website address, you'll see it says edit. Okay, so if you click on, if you highlight just the word edit, this took me so long to figure out, and type the word copy, and then highlight that all, share that link with them. Now, this is next level Google. So as Gus would say, this is tip number 2000, I'm going to go with now. And you click on that, you copy it, and then put that into a new tab. It will force them to make their own copy. So you're not having to get all of their responses in one place. They can then have it, it will save in their Google Drive. So I'll do that again. At the end of our website address, so if you're on your form or on a Google Doc, this works in docs, it works in sheets, it works in sites, slides, all of these things. You'll see the word edit at the end. Now, if you change that word edit to copy, then highlight all that text, copy it by right click and copy. I'll go to a new tab just to make sure it works. And then I will paste and then hit enter. It forces me to make a copy. And as always, this is recorded at the moment. So if you do need to do that again, don't worry. If I click on make a copy, here we go. This is my copy of a blank quiz. So now this is mine. I control this. I can double check that it's in my own drive. So I can click on this folder icon. I can make sure, yes, it's in my Google Drive. It's not in shared with me. It's in my Google Drive. And then I have ownership of that. So if I want to now share that with my class, and I'm the teacher you've shared it with, I can click on send, I can get that link, and it won't be the same as it was for other people. And likewise, if I do the same with this one, so you'll see right now I've got 2 responses because this is my own form. If I go into the copy, make a copy, you'll see I have no responses because this is a new form. This is a copy of it, so the responses don't come with it, only the questions. It's a little life hack for you, time saver as well, and it saves you having to go through all of the bits and pieces from other classes and figure out where your students are in amongst it all. Last thing as well, as always, when we do have our Google Forms created, I'll just make sure I'm on the one with responses. We can go into responses like we did with the surveys on Friday. We can generate a spreadsheet, and then you can collate all of that information in one place. So then you've got that spreadsheet and you can analyze that data in any way you wish. And we'll go over some of that on our spreadsheet session. And I can't remember when it is, maybe tomorrow. I don't know. So that's all for today. Do you send or share the copy with the other teacher? You share that link. So that link that you took with that copy at the end, so it would have said edit originally. By changing that to copy, you give that teacher that link, okay? You don't share it, you don't send them the form, you would just send them that link in an email, and then it makes them create a copy without you having to give them anything. So just make sure that you have got that link copied. And then if you were going into your Gmail, creating a new email, let's go into this, and then just paste that into there, and it makes them create that copy. Now I'm going to stop recording for now. And I am just going to spend this time answering some of your